You have 2 minutes. When you come up to the podium, you just press the little silver button at the base of the microphone to activate it. So any of those individuals out there who want to speak this evening, please feel free. The floor is yours. Just a little button at the base of the microphone. There you go. You'll see a red light. There you go.
My name is Caitlin Keenan, and I live at 391 Tamarack, across the street from the proposed development. I live with my husband, our 2 children, my brother, and his partner, who are back there. We jointly purchased this home in 2018 and chose the neighborhood specifically because it was quiet, close to green space, and low traffic, a great place for kids and pets. What we didn't know in 2018 was that Colwood had just published a new official community plan, and that this plan had unilaterally rezoned our little neighborhood from the lowest density residential housing to high density mixed residential and commercial zoning in a single blow. Alone of the Colwood neighborhoods, we had the misfortune of going from R1 to centers in one dramatic step. In fact, it turns out nobody in our community was aware of this zoning shift, which does not speak well for meaningful consultation during the planning process. We all found out about our neighborhood's fate for the first time when we attended the developer's open house in March. We were collectively disturbed to hear from the developer, and this is basically a direct quote, that they were not permitted to propose anything less than a 6-story complex on this lot because the 2018 zoning wouldn't allow it. With respect, the abrupt rezoning of our neighborhood was not in the spirit of the OCP, and neither is this development. The official community plan talks about gradual infill, about thoughtful densification that aligns with neighborhood character. The intent of the plan is not to dramatically disrupt established neighborhoods, but that is absolutely the impact this development will have. I respect and accept the need for densification in our neighborhood. I know this is an inevitable and essential response to the housing crisis, but the proposed development is simply too much too soon. We're talking about a neighborhood of families with no buildings higher than 2 stories. In one act, this development would more than double the number of homes in our neighborhood. It would tower 4 stories above everything else. It would disrupt the character of the neighborhood. Families can't live in 350 square foot shoebox apartments. I urge you to consider the spirit of the OCP when deciding the fate of this development. We would welcome new townhomes or other lower rise, medium density developments that gradually and thoughtfully increase the density of our neighborhood. This development is not that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would wish to speak this evening? Oh, sorry, you just have to hit the little button at the base of the microphone. It'll turn it red, and then you know you're live.
Covering it.
There you go.
Sorry, I had it covered. My name is Colin Sparks. I'm a student at UVic, pursuing a degree in geography with a minor in economics. And the address I currently live at is with my parents at 1035 Liberty Drive. As we all know, we are in a really sticky situation with the housing crisis, particularly as we have some of the highest ratios of average incomes to average housing prices in the country, and to arguability and extent of the whole world. And with this, it's almost a bit hypocritical in a way, where we have the Greater Victoria area strongly is in favor of maintaining its current urban containment boundary and protecting the current farmland, which is, of course, needed for future farm supply. And from this, limiting the amount of available developable land means we have to go up. And unfortunately, it is just the nature of when you're restricting supply, eventually you're going to run out of land. When you've got more and more people moving into the same amount of land, you're just going to have to go up. And the current the site is located in the Triangle Lands development area, which has rapid bus services, including myself using that, which is very convenient as it comes once every few minutes. It has massive active transportation build-outs of the new bridge, the Galloping Goose there, and a large amount of service provided there. And as studying geography, this is an area where density needs to get built. So it's not some 6-story building going up in someone's neighborhood ruining the character. This is an area where development needs to be focused due to the amenities that are there, the transportation options that are currently available there, and particularly from future uses in the area. So unfortunately, I don't have much time, but I am strongly in favor of the Tamarack Road development because we need to be building density, and this is a prime area to be putting that density to provide the least amount of negative impacts to COA, while also providing quite a bit of supply, particularly with provincial mandates and also available amenities in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, sorry, you just turned it off. You'll have to hit it again. There you go.
My name is Anne Jeffrey. I also live at 391 Tamarack with Caitlin Keenan, who already spoke. I want to speak briefly about our neighbors directly across the street from our house and directly next door to the 396 Tamarack Road proposed development site is a community living facility named Tamarack House that provides homes for adults with disabilities, with developmental disabilities. And because I am not sure if these individuals have the capacity or ability to speak for themselves, I felt it was very important to bring them up today. I have been informed by a Ministry of Health policy analyst that this particular facility maintains its license in part by regular inspections that ensure that the neighborhood remains safe for its residents. And it is a strong possibility that they will lose their license, and these adults with developmental disabilities could lose their homes if this construction makes the neighborhood unsafe for them, which a construction project of this size seems would inevitably do. I'm very concerned for my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak this evening? I see a hand, two hands.
Hello, my name is Greg Sivertson. I live at 408 Tamarack Road. The proposed development at 396 is directly in my backyard. I just wanted to say that I love living in my neighborhood. I love being a Colwood resident. It's just an amazing place to be. I am very concerned that this new development will destroy the character of our neighborhood. And I would encourage you to come down to the neighborhood and see what we have and what this huge apartment building compared to the rest of the neighborhood is going to do to the feeling. We're longtime residents who are proud Colwood residents. I see that many of the apartments are 344 square feet, and I wonder how long-term the residents are going to be in such a small space. And I feel that lots of people are going to come in and go, and it won't really be a residence as much as like a dormitory kind of idea. It's not building the community of Colwood, I don't think. I snuck a peek at the agenda for the Colwood council meeting coming up. I think it says that we're well on our way to meeting the housing values. Like, we're nowhere near falling short of that. We're above projection as far as I can see from the from what I read from it. So I don't see the need for such a large structure. Certainly a smaller structure, some sort of townhouse complex, some duplexes which are already in the neighborhood would be much more appropriate for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak during public participation, excuse me, tongue twister. Please go ahead.
This is my button.
You're on.
Oh, it's still on. Okay. My apologies. So I have lived on Gamble Drive for just a short while now. I purchased the house from.
Sorry, can we just get your name as well?
My name is Dan Lux. My apologies.
Thank you.
I live at 401 Gamble Place. Now I was looking at the traffic impact assessment, and it's described the street as a two-way street, and I would say it's barely that at the best of times. A lot of people utilize street parking. So basically, when a car is on one side of the street, that's basically 20 feet. Two sides of the street, 15 feet. Cars generally have to kind of, it's almost like single lane traffic half the time. Now, when you don't have sidewalks and you have elderly people and you have children, and you have, there's a disabled woman who comes up and down the street about 4 times a day. People kind of drive, it's a 50-kilometer-an-hour zone. I really don't think we have the street infrastructure to have this. Secondly, I could see, sorry, not the best public speaker. I was looking at the amount of, so 42 of the units are 350 square feet. So it seems like they're just trying to cram as many small apartments into this place as possible. 12 of them are 1 bedroom, 6 of them are 2 bedrooms, 6 of them are 3 bedroom. So all that's really doing is I could see putting in like a couple of duplexes or something like that, but it just seems like they're putting a whole bunch of people in a building, collecting money from it, and not really listening to anyone in the neighborhood. It doesn't really seem like it's a gentle kind of infill like we should be doing. So that's basically all I have to say.
Thank you. Next speaker, I see you hand there.
Hello, my name is George Moritas, resident of Caldwood, and I really do empathize with all the people here worried about the density of these upcoming developments. And I just want to, point out that we might be a little bit spoiled with the large spaces that we're so accustomed to here. In Europe, obviously the density is greater. In a city like Vancouver, where I'm originally from, the density is greater. And unfortunately, it's something that eventually over time we have to kind of get comfortable with. We do have a housing issue, and people do need to live somewhere, and not everybody can afford a duplex or a detached home. Some people can only afford a small apartment, and I think it's positive that these developers are providing housing for the people that need it. And like I said, I empathize with the people that are used to having a large space and neighborhoods with low density. But unfortunately, Victoria and the general vicinity, as you know, is a desirable place, and a lot of people want to live here, and we need to make room for them. And I think that not only the positive of actually having somewhere for people to live, but with that comes facilities and places for people to utilize, like the museum you see going up, like grocery stores, potential rec centers, and the like. So it's not all negative. I get that people have a hard time with change. But as a growing city and a growing area, it's something that we need to start getting a little comfortable with, because it's just the fact of the world. And people are coming. Oh, sorry. Thank you. That's my time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak this evening?
Sorry, request? Yeah. Hi there. My name is Jason Schultz. I live at 401 Tamarack Road. I live pretty much across from the corner there. We've been in that house for about 13 years. We got it specifically at the time I was looking for a house, which was in an area where the kids grew up, basically in a smaller area where it's actually a fenced yard where kids grew up the way we once did. And I know that it was just saying that we should be accustomed to change and everything else. I disagree in many ways. I'm actually glad he brought up Europe. I lived in Europe for 18 years. I remember living in Berlin and having an apartment and having to drive around for an hour and a half to find a parking spot because there is no parking, there's no amenities, nothing else. So it's a little different. And coming from Vancouver, I'm sure when you originally left, it was also for more space, more openness, and everything else. And we do have that here. There's lots of places that can still be built. Coming here, driving down Souk Road, for instance, it was all torn up, which in my opinion makes total sense to have the big buildings all across the sides and everywhere else because that's where you're going. There's absolutely no need to go into a small area like this. None of us would probably even be here if it was just a duplex area or something being built that's not going to tower over you. Basically, our neighbors there that sit there, they've lived there for, I don't know, probably 50 years. They probably 50 years. Of course, somebody can say, oh, yeah, they got to get used to change. But does that mean that they have to live in shadows the entire day? Because that's literally what will happen. If you go down the hill, take a look at it, where the buildings can be built, they will literally be in shade the entire day. Not just part of the day, the entire day. And then not even speak of traffic, which is actually atrocious down there right now. It's a place where there is little parking as it is. We have a legal suite. We've always basically made it very affordable for people. We've had students there, we've had couples there, we've had lots of people who've been able to move on to actually purchase their own house because we've never taken advantage of the rent situation. And so we would like to continue to provide that as well. On-street parking is, of course, the only way to do this. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the gallery who'd like to speak this evening? Oh, sorry, you just turned it off. There you go.
Good for me. My name's Anna Marie Siverson. I live at 408 Tamarack Road, and I just wanted to say that many of us here know that the housing crisis is a problem, and there's actually none of us disagree with that. But I think gentle infill is, I think, on the hearts of most people in Colwood. We have the beautification, and the OCP that I've looked at looks like it was headed toward beautification, not ugliness. Having a look at, if you actually have a look at that building and the way it looks on that piece of property, it sticks out like a sore thumb, literally. It is very unsuitable for the neighborhood unless you're going to buy us all out and do it all across the way. My home is right at the property line. We were having a look at some of the development. The underground parking alone looks like it comes right up to our property line. We don't know if that's even legal. We'll be looking into that. And it says it only takes up 50% of the land that's there. And the renderings look much larger than that. I would just urge the council or anybody else who's considering to vote on this to come on down to the neighborhood and have a look around and just think of how it would look in your backyard. We're not averse to change. I think it's just, I think we need to have thoughtful change rather than reactive change. And I'm really proud that Colwood has kept their quotas up to date. I've seen some really good letters that have gone back from, I think, from the mayor pushing back to the BC government saying that they should be a little bit more pushing some things through, and you guys have actually sat and said, well, no, we're going to thoughtfully do this. So I really appreciate that you guys are taking thoughtful time and reviewing things. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening? Oh, sorry, you have to hit it again.
You'd think I'd have figured it out after everybody else, but no. I'll be quick. My name is Lowell Keenan. I also live at 391 Tamarack Road. I've worked for Habitat for Humanity for the past 4 years, so I hope that people will take me seriously when I say that I am acutely aware of the housing crisis that we face. I'd like council to take into consideration the fact that all of this housing that is being proposed is market rate, as far as I'm aware. This is not going to solve the affordability crisis. It's not even going to impact the affordability crisis. You've provided no guarantees, no obligations on the developer to actually provide something that is of value to our poorer citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would wish to come forward?
Tim Day, Charlie Place, and I agree with everyone else here. This is completely inappropriate for this neighborhood. Clarify, this is not part of the Triangle Alliance. This is not part of the fast bus service. It's not under subject to that. It may be colored the same as the Triangle Lands, but it's not part of the Triangle Lands where the high rises are going to be, or the gateway where the high rises are going to be. This is a neighborhood of single family homes and it's inappropriate. And I just wanted to point out that in the Colwood, I don't know if the staff are proponents or whatever, but the drawing, the site contents, they've got a transit terminal at the corner of Gold Street and Whale Road. And that's a bus stop. That's not a transit exchange. And the transit exchange is a long ways away. And there's only frequent bus service from the transit exchange. It's not rapid transit in Colwood. And this is not within the walking distance. And it's too tall. And I want to add, was built without engineering oversight and has never had the engineering approval for it. There's no study of how much it's shifted since it started. I just get lip service from staff when I try to find out anything about that. And it's a disaster waiting to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would wish to speak this evening? Make one more call here. If there's anyone. All right. Okay, here we go. You don't need to touch the button. It's still on for you.
Hi, my name is Shara Schultz. I live at 401 Tamarack. I would like to read excerpts from the Barba Papa's New House, which is a book by Annette Tyson and Taylor Taylor, read in honor of the children of Gamble in Tamarack neighborhood. The Barba babies were enjoying a quiet afternoon with Francois and Sydney. Barba Papa was wondering if their house was large enough. He had Barba Mama. They had 7 children now and they needed a bigger house. Francois told them of an old abandoned house nearby. The house was beautiful, but it needed a little work. It was fun for the whole family to work together. They quickly did the repairs and Barba Bo painted a mural on the wall. They shopped on the street market for housing furniture. They had lived there happily for some time when it was decided that all the houses in the street had to be torn down. Everyone had to move out fast. The Barba babies were sad to see their lovely home ruined, but there was nothing they could do. Poor Barba Mama cried. They were offered an apartment, but they weren't happy there, so they searched for another home. They found a pretty site on a hillside near a spring of fresh water. The Barba Papa family went to work again. Everybody helped. Barba Papa was pleased. Francois and Cindy were coming to stay. They helped plant their gardens and everything was fine until in the distance they heard the hungry snap and chop of the wrecking machines. This group of people here aren't here because of concerns over property values or NIMBY politics. This is a group of caring neighbors who have worked hard to provide homes for their families and build community together, who are now fighting to save a quiet family neighborhood next to a salmon-bearing stream and a lovely patch of forest from being steamrolled in the name of corporate greed and development. This neighborhood has produced some of the finest people in Colwood, and I hope it continues to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. So I make the call again if there's anyone else who would wish to speak this evening.
Is it on?
It's on.
Kelly Coltish. I live at 400 Gamble Place. I've been there 42 years. I'm not good at public speaking, but one thing for sure we are not talking about is winter. When the snowplow comes down the hill, it's bad enough as it is. We all sit out there and watch and laugh, and the people in the bottom of the apartments there trying to get up the hill. We've helped so many times, people pushing them up the hill. The snowplow's not even going to come down anymore now. They're not going to be able to turn around. They can't turn around as it is. And the housing crisis, like the big elephant in the room, it's the price of rent. We don't have a housing crisis. You've just built 4 new condos down at Wilford. 3/4 of them are empty. And they're probably going to stay empty. Langford has so many condos. There's rent everywhere. for 42 years, I've never, Colwood Arms has always been full. Every time I walk by there now, 2-bedroom for rent. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? I see people looking at each other. I imagine there's one or two more, so we'll give you another chance here. Anyone else? There we go.
I didn't come here this evening to speak, but I will. My name is Jordan Shand. I live at 401 Gamble Place, and I've been there for 6 months. I've saved up my whole life and worked multiple jobs after living in tiny little cube-like homes in Europe and in Canada to finally have the home of my dreams, to find out that my view will be a 6-foot building, a 6-foot story building rather, and that my property value that I've saved up for is not worth as much as selling for 350 square feet. I work with the CRD and I work with licensing all day long, and I just can't believe how little thought has been put into this because my livelihood is being held by the book of the law. And it seems like we're considering people who don't live in Colwood, let alone live on the street, when we're making these considerations. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else considering coming forward? Going once? Not much of an auctioneer, but I just want to make sure. I know sometimes you know, as the last speaker indicated, it's difficult to come forward if you're not comfortable public speaking, and it's not the most welcoming environment sitting across in like a panel interview. But we do appreciate hearing from the community and from all the stakeholders involved. So if there's anybody else, last call. Okay, well then we'll move on from public participation.
If I may, Chair, we do have somebody online that would like to participate.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll take the online call then.
Oh, that's interesting. My camera is not working.
I can
Sorry,
hear you.
Counselor. Okay, you can hear me. It's great. Hi, it's Kim Jordan from Hopwood Place. I'm the counselor at the city. I just wanted to just point out some things that I've noticed about this bylaw and this development. And at the April 24th, 2023 council meeting, staff introduced the new transit growth area zone, and council was asked to add this zone to the land use bylaw and direct staff to use it when evaluating future rezoning applications within the transit growth area. The TGA 1 zone supports ground-oriented and low-rise buildings, generally up to 4 stories, and in limited cases up to 6. And while the zone was drafted by staff and peer-reviewed, I believe there are significant concerns in how it can, in comparison to what is happening here. That zone actually specifies that a lot width is required of 30 meters in order to build even 3 stories. And this is less than 30 meters wide, and its 6-story building is being proposed immediately adjacent to single-family homes. The reality is the more narrow a lot is, the less height it should have. The bylaw also, I find a lot of gaps in the bylaw. For example, if a developer wanted to build townhomes, there are no specific regulations for townhomes or duplexes, meaning one could technically build them up to 6 stories high. The regulations as written do not adequately consider the people already living next door. There are no landscaping requirements, no regulations on how parking is separated from visitor parking. There's no visitor parking at all. There's no mention of secured parking. These are things that people that live there would be concerned about. Even those without vehicles still have visitors who need somewhere to park, and on-street parking is already limited. On top of that, none of the required enhancements for pedestrian and bicycle connectivity or bike parking and facilities are being provided. The proposed design offers virtually no amenities, and the units at 350 square feet don't even provide storage space, raising questions about whether they meet social housing standards. Without stepping down or back, the building is simply too large and too extreme for a narrow lot sandwiched between homes. It is, if this is intended to be a rental building, where is the rental covenant to ensure it stays that way? Housing built here should provide a gentle transition in scale to the existing neighborhood. I also question the legality of placing an underground parking garage directly up to a property line without mutual consent, as this could be considered lateral trespass. Finally, I just want to stress that Colwood is already in compliance with Bill 44. I hope everybody heard that. Colwood is already in compliance with Bill 44. We are not in a position where we must rush housing through at the expense of thoughtful planning. We have time and the responsibility to ensure new housing fits its context, supports existing residents, and provides that kind of livable, well-designed community we all want to see. Thank you.
Sorry, the council chamber seems to be muted. I am unsure if I'm supposed to start yet. Apologies.
You should be able to hear us now, Matt.
Yes, I can.
Thanks,
Okay.
Matt. Feel free. I was going to hand draw a sign and hold it up to the camera, but you've saved me that activity. So please, yeah, if you want to go ahead on the development variance permit for 641 Latoria.
Yes, thank you. My apologies for not being able to present in person. I kind of got a head start on flu season, so I thought it was best to stay home. I'll dive in here. I'm going to try to keep it brief. The applicant for 641 Latoria also has a presentation prepared for you this evening, so I'll just dive in. So a quick little background, the property was rezoned in January of 2024 from residential 1, so the R1 zone, to comprehensive development 38 zone to accommodate a 29 unit townhouse development. So this application that's before you is a variance permit application that is associated with an active form and character development permit application, as well as an environmental development permit application. So this variance is basically one of the steps before those can be issued. Next slide, please. So just some site context. The subject property is 1.88 acres in size and is located in South Colwood, just west of the intersection at Latoria Road and Veteran Memorial Parkway. The property is a wide yet narrow hillside lot that features significant grade changes throughout the property, second growth trees, and rocky outcrops. Next slide, please. So the proposal is a 29 unit townhouse development consistent with the rezoning that was done in January of 2024. Units will range from 2 to 4 bedrooms and have 2 parking spaces. As you can see in the site plan here, approximately 46% of the entire property will be green space. 23% of the total property, most of the western part of the site that is labeled covenant area is being secured in its natural state for the purposes of environmental conservation and restoration. Next slide, please. So this is a couple renderings from the Latoria perspective. As you can see in the bottom rendering, there's pretty steep slopes and existing bedrock formations make up much of the frontage of Latoria currently. And there's limited site depth, which introduce several challenges which necessitate large retaining wall on the site in several locations to make the proposed development feasible. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, the proposal has multiple retaining walls that exceed the maximum permitted retaining wall height, which is 1.2 meters. So all of the subject retaining walls that will need a variance are highlighted here in pink. I should clarify, there was a couple one comment that came in the public participation section that any retaining walls over 1.2 meters will be required to be designed by an engineer. So that's not a concern with this project. And those designs usually come at the building permit stage once all the development variance permits and development permits are approved. So the retaining walls here are generally the highest ones are at the back of the property near building D. And then as you can see, there's several along Latoria Road, and those would sit on top of an existing bedrock rock face wall. Next slide, please. So as you can see in this section, it's a little small, at least on my screen. Hopefully it's bigger in council chambers, but the lack of site depth and grade change really makes it a challenge to develop something on the site. So from where the sidewalk would be to the back of this site is nearly 50 feet. It's 15 meters. So that significant grade change basically necessitates having retaining walls throughout the site to have a feasible development. Staff do recognize that the roughly 18 feet at the highest point will be an imposing visual presence. But as I'll get into here shortly, I think there are some mitigation strategies that the applicant is using that will help to mitigate that. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to provide a couple examples of existing situations along Latoria. These are not what is proposed by the applicant. These are just existing examples to show that there are other very large retaining walls along Latoria because of the steep slopes in the area. So as you can see in the top left corner, this is an example of a natural bedrock wall similar to what is on the proposed site, and then a retaining wall on top of that. Visually, it has vegetation on top of it that provides screening to the engineered rock wall that's above it. So just a couple examples that are already existing. Next slide, please. Some more renderings just showing kind of the treatment on the rock walls. So the applicant has also proposed, as I mentioned, the use of vegetation for screening, which in combination with a textured verti-block wall system, which you can see in the top left corner image, there's a retaining wall in the bottom left corner, and that's kind of the texture that they're proposing. And the applicant has a few images in their presentation that will speak to this as well. The anticipated appearance of the verti-block walls and natural bedrock walls integrated with vegetation will help to mitigate the overall visual appearance and reduce the negative visual prominence of the walls and enhance their integration with the environment. Next slide, please. So as part of the communication process for this application, notifications will be sent out prior to the council meeting. Members of the public are invited to submit comments regarding the variance application, either in writing or by speaking during the public participation period at the council meeting later on in this process. Next slide, please. So staff recommendation, the proposed 29 unit townhouse development at 641 Latoria Road requires a development permit or development variance permit to increase the maximum retaining wall heights in several locations throughout the site to facilitate the proposed development. Considering the unique constraints of the property, the significant portion of the property that is being preserved in its natural state for the purposes of environmental conservation and restoration, and the proposed visual mitigation measures proposed by the applicant, staff recommend that the Planning and Land Use Committee recommend the approval of the requested variance to council. Thank you for your time. I am available if you have any questions. And if not, I can introduce the applicant for his presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. If you wanted to introduce Sam, I think we'll just feed right into the formal presentation.
All right. So yeah, I'd like to invite Sam, Mr. Sam Ganong, principal with Form 1 Homes, to present his proposal to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, members of the Planning and Land Use Committee. My name is Sam Ganong, principal with Form 1 Homes. I'm here to just probably reiterate a lot of what Matt has already mentioned. I'll try to keep it brief. Our proposed development is for 29 townhomes on 1.88 acre property, of which 0.4 acres are being designated as the natural state covenant area. Is there any way for me to advance? Oh, perfect. Thank you. This application is requesting a variance to the allowable height of retaining walls. This includes the frontage along Latoria Road, noted as Area A on the slide, and also in the rear of the in the rear yard of Building D along the south side of the property, noted as Area B. Retaining wall heights along the Latoria frontage will vary from 3.6 meters in front of Building A and taper down towards 2.2 meters at the northwest corner of the property or in front of that the covenant area. So the anticipated right-of-way improvements along Latoria is one of the reasons for the requested variance. The existing grade of Latoria is already below the grade of the subject property. And in addition, the current edge of the asphalt shown by the red dotted line there is 13 meters away from the existing property line. And this image shows the existing conditions along Latoria. Subject properties to the right on the screen. We've tried to limit the retaining wall heights by sloping the driveway entrance into the property as much as possible, maxing out at about a 15% grade coming into the site. Sorry, I'll mention while we're on this slide that in order to facilitate the roadway improvements with boulevards, bike lanes, center median along Latoria, the entire 13-meter boulevard space between where you see the road right now and our property's frontage will need to be utilized. Hence why the Latoria Road grade will kind of cut further into the property, exacerbating the issue of getting up onto the proposed development site. So in section, this is what the grade looks like through the center of the site, with Latoria Road being on the left, the back of the property being on the right. We've tried to limit the retaining wall heights, as I mentioned, by sloping the driveway entrance into the property. And in addition, the townhomes at the rear of the property are cut into the slope at the back, allowing us to lower the overall grade of the central drive aisle. This helps balance the retaining wall heights between the front and the back of the development. And in this particular section, the retaining wall along Latoria is 2.9 meters before stepping back to a lower wall height of 1.2 meters. This rendering helps illustrate what the frontage along Latoria will look like, with the driveway entrance coming up between buildings A and B. And based on the existing rocky conditions of the site, we anticipate being able to utilize exposed rock face walls along the Latoria frontage. We feel this would be the most natural looking approach to the design and consistent with other conditions that we see within the neighborhood. And then lastly, the area behind building D will also require overhead retaining walls. The previously mentioned site conditions, along with a relatively steep average grade to the site being approximately 28% along the edge of area B. Along the edge of area B, result in the need for this additional area of overhead retaining walls along the back. So in area B, the maximum height of the wall at kind of the southwest corner there will be 5 meters, and then that will taper down in either direction, eventually kind of running into the 1.2 meter height requirement. So in section behind building D, you'll notice we've introduced a lower 1.2 meter high wall before stepping back to the overhead portion. This will include a landscape strip and help soften the condition for the residents in the rear building there. And that being said, only 2 of the townhomes in the entire development will have these taller walls kind of reaching that 5 meter mark. I mentioned along the Latoria frontage, we will likely be able to utilize exposed rock face walls. As an example of this is shown in the image to the left there, which is actually just around the corner on VMP. Although this image shows a rock face that is a lot taller than what our variance is requesting, it was just the best example in the neighborhood that I could find where they're using essentially the blasted rock face as to retain the development above. And then for areas where we're not able to use the exposed rock face, we'll be using a more typical engineered retaining wall treatment called VertiBlock, which can be seen in the image to the right. Overall, we believe our proposal has found a good balance between existing grade challenges, retaining wall heights, on-site grading, and resident livability, and the public realm experience along Tory Road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. I would just look to committee now to see if there's any questions for either the proponent or Matt with the city. Don't see any comments. Oh, I see one. James Perry. No, I don't know. It's kind of become a thing, Mr. Perry.
Yeah, it is what it is. What I really like, first and foremost, like preserving covenant space and having a park or general neighborhood space dedicated to the little development. I know it's not little, but like, you know, I like the sense of community that particular attribute can provide. The one thing I was interested about on the rear facing wall, are you anticipating using an exposed rock face wall for the rear of the property as well for the 5 meter retaining walls, or is that going to be a different style and structure?
Our geotech engineer, Ryzik, they'll be kind of advising as we do excavation on the site. Anywhere where we're cutting into a slope is where they feel we can use that kind of blasted exposed rock face wall. And then anywhere where we can't, where we're building retaining walls in front of those blasted rock face walls is where we'll use the VertiBlock or lining the driveway, just in like the kind of the extra areas where we're not already cutting into a slope.
And when it comes to like building a retaining wall with just large stones, what are the benefits or detriments of that? Are there particular, other than like the look and feel and the character, which would align with other developments in the area? What sort of precedent do we have? And this is not necessarily for the developer, but a broad question. Like, other than the notable one up Byzantin that is along Latoria, do we have high retaining walls? I see them in Langford all the time, but I can't recall the frequency of just, you know, boulder face walls. So I'd be interested in hearing a little bit of detail around like the prevalence and usage of that style, which was a point of concern in the public participation.
Yeah, so I don't know how, so there's a blasted face rock wall where we're not bringing in new material to build that retaining wall. We're literally blasting into and kind of doing a cut slope. So we'll utilize, once we do the blasting, we'll utilize the exposed or what will be exposed rock face as the retaining portion. And then any kind of ancillary retaining walls that we need, that's where we'll use the engineered verti-block system. So we're not bringing in kind of boulders to do like those like large boulder masonry type walls. It's either the blasted face or the engineered, which isn't a natural product, it's an engineered product, being the verti-block.
So even the front of the property will be blasted face?
That's the intent.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can also speak quickly to that in the official community plan, we have requirements as well as the zoning bylaw for applicants to provide a textured face so that it isn't just solid concrete walls. So that's kind of where this textured verti-block system kind of came from, is that's one of our requirements for developments, just to give it a visual appeal as opposed to just concrete retaining walls.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. I'm working remotely in Vancouver this week. Just a couple of questions specifically for staff at this point, but this current rendering, Matt, and I'm only working off one screen, so I can't have the report open at the same time, but am I right in my memory that the original entrance that I saw was at the west end of the property through where that covenanted area is currently?
Through the chair, yeah, during the rezoning application, there was 3 different iterations of where the entrance would be, and this current iteration allows for a larger covenant area than what was initially proposed, and also reduces some of the conflicts created by having it in that location. So this would be the new location. A little bit different than what you saw, but I think it works out in the benefit of retaining more of the covenant area.
Can you talk about the proximity for that ingress egress to the intersection? Because there wasn't a diagram that I saw that really showed some perspective on that.
I might have to, I'm also working at home, so
yeah.
I might have to get back to you, Councillor, on that and talk to our engineering staff. If my understanding is they don't have any concerns with the current proposal, and they've worked with the applicant to kind of throughout both the rezoning and this process to hammer out the details. But I'm happy to follow up after I'm back in the office and I can talk to.
I mean, I didn't need a specific number. I just couldn't gain some perspective on that. It might be fine. But was there thought given to that entryway going between building B and C to push it further back from the intersection?
Sorry, Councillor Jansen, if I can interject, Chair here. Mr. Rosenberg, our Chief Engineering, has commentary, I think, on the placement and relevance to the intersection and things.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Councillor Jansen. Back to your comment about the iteration and where the accesses are located. You're correct. There were several places, and I think actually the first iteration was closer to the roundabout and involved got into the throat area of the roundabout and was going to ultimately hinder the function of that roundabout. So we asked them to move it. Then they went to the second one, which then was to the detriment of the covenants area. And then we finally landed on a third one, which gave us the most covenant area and did not impact the roundabout work. So we felt like it was a good, they had some room between those two areas, but where they landed is certainly fine with staff.
Thank you. That's all I needed to hear. And to be fair, I think it's fantastic. The increased covenanted area, the community loves its green space, and that certainly hits the mark there. And then as far as I really don't take much of a position on the height of the retaining walls. The property is what it is, and it requires some stability. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Jensen. I'll just speak quickly to it. I think the access point stood out to me. I'm not going to make that the proverbial deal breaker this evening, but I think when it comes before council, I'd be looking to investigate possible no left turn coming out of the development. I see its proximity to a roundabout. The upside of that is that if you are exiting that complex, you want to go left, you know, you're heading towards Souk or whatever it may be, you simply do a legal U-turn in the roundabout that's 50 meters down the road and away you go. So that would prevent that traffic from moving out into that right lane, which can, you know, at various times of day can be pretty busy with people coming VMP to South Langford. So minor issue, but I think there's a time and place to raise that. Retaining walls, I don't have an issue. Mr. Day spoke earlier about you know, a different retaining wall and issues around it. And, you know, I wasn't on council then. I have no information on that. I can't speak to it, but I have the utmost confidence that our engineering staff would do what's required to ensure that the wall treatments here are above board. The comment that it would be illegal, I think, is not factual. I looked into that at length today. Mr. Day had sent in a letter, and as a result, I did some research and checked with the ministry, and the comment is misguided, maybe well-intentioned, but not accurate. So there is nothing nefarious, nothing illegal. You know, anything above 1.2 meters, engineers get involved. I think we can reasonably be assured that this wall will be built to last. I mean, there's 3,000-year-old walls, stone walls stacked up in other parts of the world. So I'm not going to lose sleep over that. I don't know if anyone else on the committee would like to speak. Otherwise, I would just move the recommendation to council. And if anyone wishes to speak to that, I don't see anyone. So all those opposed, unanimous, that has been moved. That will bring us to item 5.2 on the agenda. The rezoning application for 396 Tamarack Road. Richard Roy is going to speak to us in person initially, followed by some of the proponents here.
Thank you and good evening, Chair and committee members. So as you mentioned, I'll walk through this short presentation covering highlights of the staff report for the application of RZ 00015 at 396 Tamarack. You've also noted that the applicant is here and will share a presentation once I've completed. So the proposal is to amend the land use bylaw to rezone the property at 396 Tamarack Road from R1 residential zone to Tamarack Colwood Corners zone. A little bit of site context here. So the property is within a neighborhood primarily zoned R1 residential. However, the entirety of the neighborhood is found within the Colwood Corners land use designation. The Colwood Corners land use designation seeks to encourage a diverse mix of housing choices and feature the densest residential development within the city of Colwood. The Colwood Corners designation is clustered around the Colwood Transit Exchange and Galloping Goose Trail, and the Colwood Corners designation seeks to connect residents to transport options and promote walkability and cycling options. I will also note that a form and character development permit will be required prior to BP. So should this be considered by council, the drawing you do see in the renderings is subject to change to meet the form and character requirements of the OCP. Also on the site context here, you'll note that the property in question is approximately 200 meters away from the bus stop at the corner of Goldstream and Whale Road there where they sort of intersect. It's more on the Goldstream side of things, and that connects to bus 95, which is the only frequent transit bus that travels through Colwood. So the OCP and the Colwood Corners designation has this as a neighborhood in transition. So as mentioned, this neighborhood is characterized by single family homes on large lots. This is the first application we've received that proposes this level of density in the area, and it's a notable shift from the existing development style. I will note that there's a separate application for that has been received by the city of Colwood for 420 Tamarack, and it reflects a similar scale of development. This may indicate a potential trend for the neighborhood. We're also seeing interest in higher density proposals, and this is likely driven by the neighborhood's strong access to frequent and reliable transit and the accessibility transit options, considering the proximity of the Galloping Goose as well. Okay, so the proposal is a 6-story, 66-unit market rental apartment with a floor area ratio of 2.43 and 40% lot coverage. The location is, as mentioned, is approximately 200 meters from the Blink Rapid Transit Bus 95. The development emphasizes transit-oriented living. It includes 52 vehicle parking spaces and 103 bike parking spaces, along with end-use amenities such as bike washing and repair facilities. A proposed development agreement is also proposed to formalize a pedestrian connection to Whale Road, enhancing walkability and neighborhood integration. I'll emphasize that within the proposal, the applicant will require a variance to reduce the required vehicle parking from 73 required stalls to 52, representing a 29% reduction or shortfall of 21 stalls. So the Colwood Corners built form policies in the OCP. So the land use designation Colwood Corners is an intended growth area. So it's supporting a mix of low rise and mid rise, as well as high rise multi-unit buildings reaching heights up to 12 to 15 stories. The base floor area for any new development within this area is a floor area ratio of 2, with the potential maximum densities reaching a floor area ratio of up to 4.5. The highest development densities are planned along the key corridors, including Souk Road, Goldstream, and Whale. And this is ideally where we'd see buildings reaching up to 15 stories. And so the proposal does align with a floor area ratio of 2.4, does align with the OCP's designation for the area of Colwood Corners. Okay, so the proposed Tamarack Colwood Corners zone, the proposed zone was intended to serve as a template for future development in the neighborhood. While the parameters allow for the construction of a 6-story building, the zone would also permit townhouse development. The following key regulations support the apartment use. And that was the 2.5 max FAR, maximum lot coverage of 50%, and required setbacks for the building must be 5 meters from neighboring properties. Maximum height of up to 6 stories. This was mentioned earlier in terms of how that would adjust for townhouses, as any rezoning would have to come forward for any proposal would have to come for rezoning. There'd be an opportunity to insert a townhouse maximum height there. However, they'll still be under the maximum densities of 2.5 FAR. So this zoning framework provides flexibility for a mix of residential building types while maintaining appropriate density and spatial separation. In terms of communication and timeline, so tonight we're at the Planning and Land Use Committee, where a recommendation will be forwarded to council. So that council meeting will be October 14th for the public in the crowd who are interested in participating again. So the staff recommendation, have to give me a second as it's changed on this. Wow. All right, I'll read it through here. So that the Planning and Land Use Committee recommend to council that Colwood Land Use Bylaw 151, 1989 Amendment 225 Tamarack Colwood Corners, Bylaw number 2085 to 2005 be considered for first, second, and third readings. That prior to adoption of the Colwood Land Use Bylaw 15189, Tamarack Colwood Corners Bylaw 2025, the following long-term conditions be registered within a Section 219 development agreement to address pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. So prior to building permit, the developer would be required to enhance pedestrian and bicycle connectivity from Gamble Drive to Whaler Road to promote active transportation. Potential infrastructure improvements may include sidewalks, shallow bike lane markings on the road, and directional signage. That prior to building permit approval, the developer will submit plans to incorporate transportation demand management measures as detailed within their submitted parking study. These measures include providing long-term bike parking that exceeds bylaw requirements by 40%, installing 110-volt e-bike charging outlets at 50% of the long-term biking parking spaces, sizing 15% of the bike spaces to accommodate cargo bikes, and delivering end-trip facilities such as maintenance and cleaning station to further support the active transportation. And that prior to adoption of land use bylaw 151-189 amendment 225 Tamarack Colwood Corners bylaw 2085-2025 approval by the Ministry of Transportation and Transit approval be received by the Ministry of Transportation and Transit. And that Colwood authorized the concurrent processing of development variance permit application in conjunction with the associated rezoning application, that the requested variance of off-street parking regulations to allow no less than 71% of the minimum required parking stalls to be considered through the DVP process. And further, that public notification and opportunity for comment be provided in accordance with the development variance process prior to the approval of the requested variance. For the Planning Land Use Committee tonight, your options. So option one is that staff recommendation. Option two, that the application for rezoning application 2015 Tamarack be deferred pending provision of additional information requested by council. Option three, that the application for rezoning RZ 00015 for 396 Tamarack be denied, thereby maintaining the current zoning and parking requirements. That the director of planning be authorized to, sorry, this one should have been dropped. Yeah, sorry, I apologize. This one should have been dropped from an option there. It's there, it's good. That the director of planning be authorized to grant the following variance at the time of development permit issuance. That the required number of parking stalls under off-street parking regulations bylaw number 1909-2022 be varied to allow the developer to provide no less than 70% of the bylaw's minimum requirements. And further, that public notification and opportunity for comment be provided in accordance with the development variance process to any approval of the requested variance. That's it. We'll open the floor for the applicant to give a presentation.
Yes, thank you. I think we'll hear from the applicant next, and then following that, then we go into questions. Understand we have Denise Coors, the lead development manager. Welcome.
Okay, that's on. Good evening to the chair and members of the Colwood Planning and Land Use Committee. Our presentation tonight is going to provide some details around our rezoning application in terms of the Colwood land use considerations that the planner has gone over to some extent already. Some of the location features, details on the traffic and parking analysis will be provided that we completed for this project. And then those are followed by some of the design features at a preliminary stage. Well, I can just get you to advance it if you prefer. All right. So this, as was already mentioned, some of the planning and land use designation considerations that we placed for this development proposal. This is located in the OCP area of Colwood Corners, which has also got a designation of centers. And some of the other pertinent policies that reviewed are a nearby gateway and Triangle Lands Vision and Action Plan. There was also the 2020 Housing Needs Report, both the Transportation Master Plan as well as the Active Transportation Plan, Climate Action Plan, and Urban Forest Plan. So also, as was mentioned, this figure is to show the location of the center of the newly established Colwood Exchange area, and that has a 400-meter radius. We're 200 meters beyond that with this project site. So some of the property location features here, I just wanted to mention here. So this increased residential density, while commercial is not permitted in this specific area, it is proposed for other areas that are nearby. And having a good supply of residential properties that are within walking distance will help support that commercial. We have an increased supply of rental units, including a large number of the studio suites, which by their nature are more affordable particularly for seniors and students. We're close to the regional and municipal trails, which includes the Galloping Goose, and close to a variety of transit options, which were already mentioned and we'll provide more information on, as well as shopping, recreation center, golf courses, schools, including Royal Roads. And this does support walking and cycling, including an improved public realm. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Matt Lilly, who's from Watt Consulting. Matt provided us with discussions or the calculations that we use to determine the traffic impact and parking.
I won't press the thing. The local area around the subject site has been developing. For instance, Whale Road and Welfare is now signalized. This is in conjunction with an increase of high quality transportation options, such as the Blink Bus Rapid Transit and upgrades to the Galloping Goose Trail. Further, transit will be easily accessible from the site, as future residents will be able to have a quick 4-minute walk to the Whale Road and Goldstream transit stops. And there's also a relatively easy 13-minute walk to the Colwood Exchange. Cycling is also being improved significantly in the area, as the overpass will further allow people to choose bicycles, while at the same time e-bikes and cargo bikes will allow people and continue to allow people the opportunity to replace car trips with bicycle trips. A transportation impact assessment was conducted for the site that looked at the local area in terms of the current traffic and their conditions. And this found that at the peak hour, there is an expected increase of 26 vehicles or vehicle trips, or 1 trip every 2 to 3 minutes. Additionally, a parking study that reviewed 14 sites throughout the CRD, which analyzed vehicle registration data from these sites, was conducted and found that it would be appropriate to provide a total of 52 parking spaces, which is 45 residential and 7 visitor spaces, which the development has already committed to. Despite this, the proponent has also decided to provide additional parking and TDM management options, which is the commitment of the additional 31 bicycle parking spaces and the wash and repair room. 15% of these spaces, or these bicycle parking spaces, will also be created so that they can facilitate the non-standard bicycle parking, such as cargo e-bikes. And by applying these transportation demand management measures, it is expected that the parking demand will be reduced by approximately 14% or by 6 vehicle parking spaces. This will create a rounding surplus of about 7 vehicle parking spaces, as can be seen on the next slide, sorry. Finally, to ensure that the least impacts come upon the local residents, we conducted 2 on-street parking assessments at 9 p.m., and these are to assess when the greatest likelihood of catching residents and visitors. These yielded an occupancy rate of 26.5%.
And I just want to add that we didn't assume the use of any of the on-street parking in our study. So at this point, just move over a bit to consider the frontage and site servicing improvements. So both we have done the calculations to show that both the water and wastewater capacities are available for this development. And we are proposing stormwater detention that would mimic pre-development flows. So no additional stormwater would come from the site. And of course, full frontage improvements to Colwood's municipal standards. A little bit about the site data. So as was mentioned by the planner, we're at about 2.43 floor area ratio, which is above the minimum of 2 and the maximum of 4.5. The unit mix says 42 studio units with 12 one-bedroom and 6 each of 2 and 3-bedroom units. The height, the lot coverage will come in around 40% and of the site area, and the height would come in at about 6 stories. I also have shown the proposed setbacks here, and I'll just mention in the existing zone that's being developed for the site, staff have indicated that this would conform, this development as it's being shown here would conform to all of that, all of those requirements. So at this point, just a few slides, this will show the site plan. So you can see the location of the building above ground on the site. And the setbacks are shown here. There is a semicircular access drive, which would facilitate pickups and drop-offs. And we're also proposing 1 short-term parking stall to be provided on this, which was not included in the numbers that we've calculated. This is twofold: to provide short-term parking for pickups and drop-offs, more likely for people without vehicles, and also in the hope that one day we'll have something like Moto in Colwood, and there would be a location for them to park here. I now have a couple slides just to show the parkade. So this slide shows the upper parkade level, which has where all the bike parking is. So you can see both the regular and the cargo bikes stored areas or lockup areas, as well as the bike repair facility. And then there's a smaller second floor of parking, which is provided as well, and that's shown here. This longitudinal section shows the lay of the land and how this building is being constructed to fit inside of that drop in grade. And then these are, again, just early concepts that will be further defined if we move forward to the development permit stage. So the bottom one shows the building the way that it would be viewed from the front. So at this point, I just want to mention that I'm here and the owner, Dave Stevens, is here. Matt Lilly can come back up, and architect Mike Moody is here as well if you have any questions.
Great, thank you very much. I would look to the committee for questions. I'm not going to look at you, James. Look at other people first. Councillor Jansen, anybody? I see Kathleen. Okay, we'll start there. Go.
Just a factual issue, and anyone either from the city or from the proponent can answer it for me. I've heard from the community that there's an issue potentially with the parkade encroaching on the property line. I'm wondering if we could just address that issue.
Oh, sorry, you have to just hit the button on the microphone there. Thank you. Oh, it didn't go on, sorry. There you go.
There we go. The lot slopes gently down from Tamarack to a ravine at the bottom. And at the front, the building is basically flush with grade. At the very back, the building protrudes, I think, 3 meters above the grade that we're proposing. Now, the lot lines are 0 on the east side, but I think this all is conforming to the bylaws right now. It's a 0 lot line. And the construction of the foundation of the parkade will be done with the geotechnical engineers report, doing it in sections, so you don't have to put any shoring into the adjacent properties. But yeah, it's a 0 property
On one side.
on one side.
And I will add that we took some time before we got into serious design development for this proposal to work with our geotech to determine the soils. We did a lot of drilling to determine what we would be able to support construction using a 0 lot line on that side.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I see staff. So just to further this was identified as something earlier on in the process with the applicants. There is a 0 lot line. However, due to the way the bylaw is written, as long as they maintain below the finished grade, it's 1.5 meters below above the finished grade along that edge, they are permitted to do that, and the bylaw would permit that. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I'll go to Mr. Perry.
All right, a couple things, and I apologize if I kind of bounce around from one thing to the next. The one thing that first stands out to me is the unit composition. There's a large preference towards the studio apartments. I think that if you're trying to build what I consider thoughtful housing and something that is livable long-term for individuals with either roommates or families that are growing, then a 1-bedroom is the minimum size, 2-bedroom being a preference. So I don't like the high prevalence of the studio apartment. And that is then segueing into the storage comment. I wasn't able to ascertain what level of storage any unit gets, but if the statement is accurate that the studio apartments don't get storage or they're not attached to storage, you're going to run into space problems very quick for those individuals, and I don't think it's going to be a desirable living experience for anyone renting there. On the parking front, there was a very valid comment about visitor parking, whether you're exercising mechanisms to reduce the necessity of parking for the residents. There certainly is a necessity for the visitors of the residents to have parking available to them. And then looking towards the actual pedestrian bicycle connectivity requirement in the recommendation, I see that it promotes the transportation along Gamble Drive, which could include sidewalks, bike lane markings, which is little more than markings, and signage, which again is little more than just signage. Knowing that we have individuals mentioning how much they park along the side of the road now, how do we plan on addressing the issues present there? The sidewalks would be lovely, and that's a really good thing to be doing, but I don't see the amount of traffic being addressed, especially if it genuinely is turning into a one-way. So I'll kind of take pause there. I know I touched on a lot of things, and I'm happy to kind of revisit it as we discuss this. I think your microphone's off. We're having it.
I made some notes. So I wasn't sure if those are just statements or questions, just
So when it comes to unit composition, I would certainly provide that to you as feedback when you start moving towards development permit. This is currently just a rezoning conversation, and so like we're looking at, do we want a building like this in this area with these sort of conditions that are being presented? The real question is around like, do you have any anticipation towards the visitor parking? Can you make that happen? And what sort of capabilities do you have to actually address like the parking comments that were made about on-street parking, even with the additional connectivity requirement in the proposal?
Okay, so the discussion, when we got the staff report, was the first time that we were looking at the comments about providing some temporary upgrades possibly on Gamble, and that we're definitely discussing that with the project team right now. So, and in addition, because this is off-site, is this, the question of the timing of when that occurs, and especially in relation to this project. So that is under consideration. Yeah. About the visitor parking, the stalls would be located, again, this allocation might be better to form a character, but the allocation would be that the visitor stalls while they may be underground, they would be outside potentially at the security gate, which makes it a little easier for people to utilize those spaces who are visiting and not have to ring in to get access to the parkade. And I don't know, Dave, if you want to comment on the unit mix with the studios. This is Dave Stevens, Lita Homes.
I'm not sure. Again, I think Denise asked a question. Was it a statement or was it a question?
When it comes to the unit composition, it was more of a statement. Like it's something that isn't part of the actual request here. Like we're not saying please build a building with the unit composition. So that will be something that comes later, but I'm only providing a general sense of feedback from myself who used to rent and transition into ownership later on, that a studio apartment is something that is outgrown quickly. And in terms of difference in price between a studio and a one bedroom, it's something that's easy to make up. And then when you jump into the two bedroom, that's where the opportunity for a roommate and an overall reduced monthly cost is something that I personally see. I know that that's my personal opinion, but it's just a general narrative towards this development.
Okay, thanks.
The other sort of area of commentary that I have is around like the e-bike charging. I have an e-bike. I wouldn't want to leave my e-bike in a space and charge it. Almost every battery is detachable, and I would just bring it back to my residence. So any additional infrastructure necessary to provide that for e-bikes, I think there is merit. I'm not, again, presenting myself as a professional in that space, only my personal experience. But if there's other things that you can offer to the residents in lieu of providing additional outlets in an area that people would likely not leverage, again, personal opinion, then there might be something there for you and to consider. The moving towards the actual like city aspect of where we are, my understanding is that the actual land is zoned R1. It wasn't actually rezoned underneath of the existing properties.
Yeah, that's correct. All the land is zoned R1. However, it does fall within the OCP designation of Colwood Corners. So
right, and so that's where I wanted to hopefully differentiate and understand a little bit more about the Colwood Corners land use designation, and then the Gateway and Triangle Lands area plan, because those are two overlapping areas and they have difference in intents and purposes. And I'm trying to make sure we understand what is unique about the space outside of the triangle area plan, but inside the Colwood Corners land use designation, which is what this development falls within.
yeah, certainly its proximity to those like the center's designation. I think the OCP designation certainly speaks more to the higher density of density residential along the corridors. And then the triangle lands, obviously, that study that was performed was looking at much higher densities than even than even what the Colwood Corners had perceived. And now with the Bill 47 within the 200 meters also expressly permits 12 stories right off the gate. So this area obviously lays outside of that. I think there was a slide shown by our applicant showing that it's about 200 meters outside of the Bill 47 TOD area. Certainly, we're not anticipating the highest of capacities of densities in these areas, which is seeking 15 plus stories at this point. But what an application within these areas certainly should be somewhere between, theoretically between. I mean, it requires the designation itself requires a base density of 2.0 FAR, which is a very dense townhouse complex, or a 4 to 6 story apartment building. So the designation itself seeks a density of let's call it 4 to 6 stories.
Okay, great. So then doubling back to the e-bike, and I'm sorry, I know I'm bouncing around. One of the things that I guess I'm struggling with the most here is the request to reduce the amount of parking required for this particular lot. And I think it was mentioned quite succinctly in one of the written submissions where even if you're reducing the actual traffic impact, right? So the number of cars actually entering, exiting Gamble during peak hours, people aren't commuting with cars. They likely still have one for their larger activities. Living on Vancouver Island, you need to drive if you want to go visit the lake or go camping or etc. So even though I personally ride my bike into town twice a week to work in the office, I would the truth is that my wife and I have 3 ICBC licensed vehicles between the two of us, right? So the reality is that I like the bikes. I want the bikes. You're within close proximity to Goldstream, but I don't think it outright eliminates the need for a vehicle that people do have in this day and age. And so the biggest struggle I have is with the parking variance at this present moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Councillor Jansen's got his hand raised there. Did you want to speak to that, Mr. Stevens? Please go ahead. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'll get you to hit the microphone again. There you go.
So, yeah, I completely understand that, and in a perfect world, we provide a car for not only the primary person who lives in the place, but their wives and their kids and multiple cars. The reality of today's economy and the reality of today's housing situation is it's just not affordable. We cannot build a building and house every car in a building. It makes the cost of that structure exceed the value of it. Therefore, we would have zero housing. So somewhere in between is probably the answer, which is why we see a trend, specifically North American wide, if not worldwide, to go to alternative forms of transit, because we cannot stay on the same path that we're on right now. We cannot build these homes for people because otherwise we're building for cars, and if we're building homes for cars, we're not housing people. So it's a real conundrum. We're providing 52 stalls, which is very taxing financially on this project. We're struggling to make it work as it is right now with just those stalls, which is causing us some challenges. I hope that answers your question.
Well, I'd like to add to that too. I mean, another big challenge that I hear everywhere, particularly my background as an engineer, but transportation demand management and mode shift are really key. In addition to that, active transportation and facilitating all of that. And so I'm going to suspect that you're not a prime resident of this building because you have 3 licensed vehicles. There are people out there, and I have relatives. I have a young niece and her husband who don't own a car and don't ever want to own one, and they're fine. And when she talks to me about that, I go into panic mode. The idea of not having a car. They're much younger. I just went through my whole list of all the things you need a car for, and they had an answer for every one of them. So I'm just saying this is a different way of thinking, and it is going to encourage people to live in this area who may not have a car and may not want one. Yeah. Okay.
I'll come back to you for a second. I'll go to Councillor Jansen next year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an interesting presentation. I have a couple of questions to kick it off, and it might be best for staff, but I heard about improvements to Gamble Road. Can we be specific about what is being considered? Because really, if it's lines on a road and a couple of signs, I really don't take much notice of that. But if there's some significant infrastructure improvements that the neighborhood will benefit from, as well as the rest of the community, I'd be interested to know a little bit more about that.
I don't know if staff want to, yeah. Sure.
Certainly we'll go to Mr. Rosenberg.
Get to the point that's under discussion. We have had initial discussions with regards to our expectations. We envision seeing some kind of connectivity from Tamarack down to Whale. What we see in that area is it's a weird area in there, in that the road is really offset. Typically when we build a road, center line is center line of the right of way. So in this particular case, 20-meter right of way, the center line of the road would be at 10 meters. You build either side and you've got some space. Actually on Gamble, it's offset significantly towards what I'll call the west. So the hillier side, where the curb line is only about 3 meters off the right of way. I think residents who live on Gamble, like 2725, 2729, would be shocked to find out that more than half of their front yards is owned by the city. So there's 8 meters between our land and the curb. So it's anticipated that we'll run some kind of corridor, I'll call it, from front to back. We haven't really sussed that out yet. It makes sense from a topographical point of view with regards to grade, ease of build and all of that. So a 2-meter wide, 2.5, 3-meter wide asphalt structure, which would keep a rural feel to the neighborhood, as opposed to a formal feel of concrete and concrete curbs and that concrete jungle thing. So it would allow bikes and pedestrians to come down that corridor, be off the roadway. That road is actually quite wide as it sits now. So it could be narrowed. So that traffic point of, I do get concerned, maybe not for this development, but as the density increases, that's a 9-meter wide roadway. We will get racing down that roadway with that width. So that parking does help to calm, but I could see traffic calming in that road's future. I can see Tamarack probably at some point, and Gamble needing a 3-way stop, which it currently isn't. Certainly reduce speeds 30 throughout the neighborhood, again, because there's sightline issues in the TIA. So there are some small issues. This particular development starts the concern, but it will get worse as as the planner has mentioned, 420 is about to come forward perhaps. And as that densifies, we will have other issues. So it'll be important to put a connection between the two. And it is our expectation that this developer will make that connection happen as part of the development.
Thank you. And I get it's early days, but that kind of commitment to looking at it in that detail, I think is a move in the right direction. And I just wanted to circle back, and this is more of a statement than anything else, to I think Mr. Perry, and I apologize, I'm not in the room, so it's a little bit awkward, but when I look at the configuration for the building, I believe that the increase, and forgive me if this has been mentioned because some spots were a little bit hard to hear, but the increased number of studio apartments certainly lends itself to consider and start to think about a variance in the parking. For me, we've seen this in Royal Bay, where you have a nice, a 2-bedroom apartment and you got 4 guys that move in with their big trucks from Alberta to work construction. Honestly, you can't pile 4 construction workers into a studio apartment. So I see a connection there between the parking scenario and the configuration. I would be more concerned if these are 2 and 3 bedrooms and a bunch of them, where absolutely you're going to have 2 or 3 people living in there with all their vehicles. And I join Mr. Perry in having 3 licensed vehicles as well, so maybe I'm a poor example. But this particular location is of interest, and I heard what the residents had to say, and I get it's alarming about density moving into a neighborhood. All I can say is that in 2 terms here, a lot of the alarmist concerns that flow from units moving into a neighborhood really haven't come to fruition. We have seen some issues with parking and traffic, and yeah, that's to be expected or anticipated. But I mean, honestly, we have several examples of successful dense developments that have kicked off in the community and have been well received. And I don't believe that someone moving into the neighborhood would think any less of the neighborhood or treat it any differently than the people that are living there currently. I did have a question for the planner, and I would like to circle back to the OCP, and I just want to make sure I heard right that the OCP does allow for applications potentially up to 12 stories in that neighborhood, in that neighborhood particularly. Is that right?
The OCP speaks more towards 12 to 15 stories along the corridors like Whale and Goldstream. However, the base FAR of 2 within the OCP, within the Colwood Corners designation would lend itself to a 3 to 6 story building. More, a dense townhouse, like that would be a very dense townhouse development too.
I gotcha. I did hear you right when you said that. Now, I had anticipated that I didn't realize that you could catch that blink bus on Goldstream Avenue there, which really I envisioned people walking down the hill to get to the main bus station at West Shore Parks and Rec. So I hadn't considered that you could have your less than half the walk, 200 meters up to that bus station, which is intriguing. And also, can you speak to where the transit growth radius fits with this development? Like, is it not almost at the edge of the 400-meter radius from the Souk Road bus depot?
Yeah, so it was actually shown in a presentation by our applicants earlier. That radius is about 200 meters away from this location. It's a little less than 200 meters, but for intensive purposes, it's about 200.
And I would like to say, I haven't seen this level of alternative transportation infrastructure proposed by a developer. This particular location has the gift of being just a few meters away from the Goose Trail. And we all know that we're making improvements along the Goose Trail to facilitate transportation, alternative transportation to get into town. We know that there are something like 200,000 movements up at that Whale Road intersection as measured by the CRD down the Goose Trail. So this is a significantly well-used pathway. And I don't think it's too much to expect that an appropriate renter would move into the building that would utilize that an electric bike to nip down the Goose Trail to get into town. I know many of my friends that are doing that. So I think that's a viable alternative. And there's certainly some stuff to think about there as far as an easement in the parking. That's really about it, Mr. Chair. I'll yield and I'll put my hand up again if I think of something else. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to Mr. Perry.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, Councillor Jansen, and the additional perspective. The thing that I wanted to respond to, and you're quite accurate about, you want the ability for people to live and work in an area near their home. What I don't see yet is the Gateway and Triangle Lands area plan coming to fruition. Once we actually see the commercialization of the area and see the things be built there where businesses are more available in tighter configurations, then the walkability of the neighborhood grows. There are things today, sure, but I still see the primary mode, or rather the destination of whatever mode you choose to be downtown. And so the necessity to travel great distances still is there. It's probably going to be roughly 15 kilometers, maybe less, likely less, from to downtown from that location. And while like biking is wonderful, it's tough in some months of the year, and you know, it can be just difficult to get up the motivation in the morning sometimes. So I think Councillor Jansen, you bring up a good point about the density of the units leaning towards the number of parking. I know that I am currently challenging the units, and I think that the studio or the large preference towards the studio apartments is something that should be considered differently. The way that I look at this right now is a variance can be requested at a different time. We don't have to approve every single variance in this particular item today. And so if the demonstration of the unit composition and the necessity to stick with the unit numbers that we have today, then does give more merit to the necessity for the variance in the parking, because yeah, you're absolutely right. Like as you go up in number of bedrooms, it's not a linear increase in number of parking spots, and I can understand and appreciate that. So I guess what I'm hoping to also make not necessarily clear, but understand a little bit better is how the OCP can be considered in conflict right now, where we have this designation of the Colwood Corners and the area plan for the Triangle lands, but we also have entire sections given towards how you move from like R1 zoning all the way up to this maximum density. I know that it lands within it, but how do we reconcile the fact that we're going from zero to hero in this particular area, while also acknowledging that just a couple doors down, there's another development that's supposed to be coming through the pipeline. So I guess that it's fair that change is happening, but I think there's something to be discussed here in terms of like how we are positioning ourselves and choosing what time, what place, which I guess is not something we get to choose. So I guess that's my what I'm trying to say is I would make a motion after people have the opportunity to make comment that we don't need to have the one variance approved today. That variance can be requested at a later date with other demonstrable data to support and motivate that particular aspect. So should I make the motion now, or would you?
We'll go. Anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak, and I'll come back to you, Mr. Perry, if that works. Yeah, I'll go to Kathleen here.
I'm just wondering if the city can confirm the impact of Bill 47. It just seems like it's being missed. So can you please clarify how Bill 47 applies to this area, the 200 meter or 400 meter category? It just
So
seems
this
like
property-
it's been missed.
So this property sits outside the Bill 47 radius for transit-oriented development. It sits at like, I wish I could bring up your presentation to show that map. But there is a radius outside of the Colwood Exchange of 400 meters, which city councils cannot require any parking for. So this sits about 200 meters beyond that radius. So it's not impacted by Bill 47. However, if you wanted to talk about Bill 44, which is small scale no, okay.
No, I just needed that clarity.
Perfect. Okay, so you can see here, so that blue radius, basically, I think it permits up to, I think it expressly permits up to, for the Colwood Exchange, expressly permits up to 6 stories. And then there is no parking minimums. So Colwood is not able to apply any parking minimum within this radius. So you'll see this property sits, it's like, 200, we'll call it 200 meters outside of this radius. But still, obviously very close to transit and yeah, so.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. I'll go back to Mr. Perry. I understand you want to make a motion. There you go.
All right, well, while I absolutely support the necessity for the density, I understand that in the OCP, we're calling this land use to say that we want this particular style of development, and as a committee and similarly council, we are compelled to address it or evaluate proposals against the OCP as it stands. The amendment I'd like to make to today's recommendation to council is the removal of the condition of the development variance permit application being in conjunction with a off-street parking bylaw no less than 71% minimum parking stalls, while also encouraging the applicant to put forward a variance permit in the future with additional supporting information.
I think we'll wait to see what that looks like in writing, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I know, I'm pretty wordy. All to say, just strike the one paragraph. Took the long way home there.
Sorry, just go to staff comment.
So for clarity, the applicant would, sorry, just one moment. So for clarity, in conjunction with this application, the applicant would submit their development variance permit, which, they've already, which has already occurred. So they are applying with this application for the variance for the parking, just for clarity.
I thought we were discussing rezoning of the land. Oh, no.
No, you're correct. There is rezoning lands, but along with it, there's a variance for the parking. And that comes through by way of a variance permit, and the process for the variance permit would be upheld, and there would be a public notification and go through the process as normal prior to adoption. So they couldn't get adoption of the zoning unless they got the permission of the development variance permit through council.
I confess to not fully understand even if we approve today's recommendation without that particular clause, would the applicant not still have the opportunity to bring something forward requesting variance?
Yeah, the difficulty there lies in procedure. I think they would have to get the adoption of the zoning and then come in with the development permit and apply at a later time. However, yeah,
Okay, thank you for the additional information.
Maybe we'll just hold for a moment and then I'll just go to Councillor Jansen and see what he'd like to add here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was waiting for the call for discussion, but I'll kick it off a little bit here. I think I understand what Committee Member Perry is trying to achieve. Is that not what option 4 is? That is move forward with the rezoning, but hold back on the parking variance to a later date? Is that my read of that? Maybe we can get some clarity on what specifically the difference is with number 4.
It's a question for staff, I think, if you're able to provide that.
I can answer. So your option 4 basically allows is you requesting or recommending that council authorize the director of planning to delegate that authority to approve that DVP at permit, if that makes sense. That's the option 4 on the new options that were sent to you today. So I don't think that, just to give you clarification, Councillor Jansen.
Thank you. That's the way I read it too, but what's the net benefit of that? Does that mean in option 4 there, it doesn't mention anything about the rezoning? So, and I'm sorry, I can't have 2 screens open at the same time, but does that mean the rezoning moves forward and then we table the parking to be done at the development permit stage? Is that my read?
It would mean that upon council approving the zoning, that would automatically allow the director of planning to permit that variance for the parking. Currently, the recommendation that staff has in front of committee is to not delegate that authority and to allow council to also bring that forward at the same time. Recognizing that the zoning, redoing the zoning is a moot point. Should council not consider that variance for that parking?
Sorry, if I could just hold the comments from the gallery for the moment. I think it's clear here that option 4 isn't what Mr. Perry was seeking to do. I think we need to identify what the motion is, in fact, the wording of the motion, so we can determine if it's procedurally valid and if it is indeed something that we move forward and discuss, even if that takes a moment to
Thank you. I'll yield, Mr. Chair, and just await the motion. Thank you.
and then I'll give the floor to Katrina Murray momentarily here. I just want to see if we have a motion that's valid here.
The current one you see in front of you, Chair, is the staff recommendation. It takes up the 2 pages. The other options are also in this slide deck, should you want to see them up on the
So
screen.
for clarity, what Mr. Perry is proposing to do effectively invalidates the entirety of it. Am I accurate? Yeah. So I would leave it up to you, Mr. Perry, if you want to withdraw and reconsider. I don't see there's an option for us to vote on it, unfortunately. That's the direction I'm getting here. I will put you on the microphone. There you go, sir. Oh, there you are.
Well, I sincerely apologize if I've caused utter confusion. I was only of the intent that we can encourage the agenda item without just the one variance requesting less parking than what the city of Colwood bylaws request. I guess I fail to understand how that invalidates the entirety of the item, and for that that was not my intent.
No, understood. And I think if the chair understands you correctly, you just want to remove the parking variance from
there's the one
from the zoning, and I kind of am at a loss to understand why we can't do that either if it requires a new recommendation. I'm looking for some staff guidance on this because I don't understand how you can't advance something and then at the same time just hold off on one component. So maybe Mr. Roy, you can help us here.
Yeah, so I believe you could drop the final 2. I think my comment was based on there would be a variance application process prior to adoption of rezoning as part of this recommendation. But if you wanted to drop it completely and have that evaluated under its own process again, then that's fine. Then you can drop that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think the confusion that's come into place is there's a rezoning amendment, right? And that rezoning has a particular parking requirement, right? So if the zoning moves ahead, that's the zoning and the parking that they'll have to meet. What they've done is they've brought forward a complete application, which is for rezoning and the development variance permit, because if they don't get the variance, they don't want to move ahead with the rezoning. So what you're asking is to allow the rezoning to move ahead. You're not providing a recommendation on the development variance permit at this time, and you're requesting or making the recommendation to council that the variance stand on its own merits and come forward at that time. And what will happen is that variance would come forward at the time that the rezoning is coming forward for adoption. And what Mr. Roy was talking about is there are separate variance processes over and above what the rezoning process is. So you're dovetailing 2 of them together. That's why it's a bit confusing.
So what you're suggesting, what I believe I'm hearing from the committee, is you're making a recommendation on the rezoning and you would be leaving that variance to go through on its own merits separately, with the understanding of that our planner, Richard Roy, has said that that will go through its process. Council would have a chance to see that when it comes forward for final consideration of the rezoning, to do the variance at the same time, so the developer would know that they have a complete package. Did I understand that correctly?
I think you did a wonderful job of detailing that. Thank you.
Okay, so for clarity, this is the motion that you're putting forward then to advance the zoning, but separate out the DVP.
Yes.
Okay, I will leave that to you to draft that. In the interim, I will go to Katrina.
Thank you. Am I also allowed to make a motion and we can vote on both of them?
You can make an amendment to the motion.
Like if I have a motion to, for the Planning and Land Use Committee to recommend one of these options, like, can I do that?
At this point, we would have to vote on the motion that's on the floor from Mr. Perry first. And then if that motion were not to proceed, then could introduce another motion at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we are now in the process of discussing Mr. Perry's motion. I assume we have that documented. I haven't spoken yet, and I did want to just say a couple things here. We've advanced to a voting stage fairly quickly on a pretty intricate topic, and one that's of significant interest to the community. I see a different issue here than sort of semantics around parking, although parking has been, you know, a major issue, as we know, in Colwood for a long time. I think for me, you know, I look back on almost 3 years now of doing this, and obviously for Councillor Jansen even longer. And, you know, I've tried to use the OCP as my guide, because it's easy to get caught up in emotion and hyperbole. And, you know, there's folks that come forward and they're understandably incredibly passionate about their neighborhood. That's how I got into this job, for those that don't know. I mean, I was really, really upset about development in my neighborhood adjacent to me. So I understand that. And I also understand the developer side of the coin, that you know, they're a business and they've done nothing wrong here. They've looked at what Colwood has to offer, so to speak, and have seen a great opportunity to build something in an area that is earmarked for it according to the maps. So there is no bad guy here. I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is that everybody's right in many ways. The developer is looking at an opportunity that makes financial sense, that is supported by the planning that Colwood has in place. The neighborhood is understandably upset at what is a fundamental change, you know, to their homes. Many people have been there decades, as we know, and whether it's 6 months or 42 years, you know, that makes a difference. So for me, there's an overarching question here, which is, you know, do we follow the letter of the OCP or do we follow the spirit of the OCP? And what is that? And that's not for me to decide. And to be blunt, and I'm not even certain it's for this committee to decide. I think we're looking at development in terms of the technical aspects and other components, and with a lens from people who are all residents of the community and taxpayers. But when it comes time to determining is the OCP accurate, I think the weight of that falls on council to decide, okay, was Colwood Corners supposed to be a center, this area? Does this fall within the center? When I think Colwood Corners, first, I think of an old pub that used to be there, and I lament the fact we don't have one. But, you know, I think of that kind of mix of residential and commercial at the confluence of Goldstream Avenue, where it meets, you know, Souk Road and Highway 14. When I think of the Triangle Lands and the Gateway, I think of the commercial elements that line Souk Road. You know, I think of what could be done where the Thrifties parking lot sits, or where Denny's restaurant is. And I'm not suggesting those owners should do anything, but realistically, I see that's where the opportunity is replacing the old car lots that line Highway 14 or Souk Road, you know, with meaningful development that's easily accessible to transit, ground floor commercial, cafes, create a downtown that Colwood doesn't have. But I'm not sure how far that extends. And I wonder if it does indeed extend into what was an R1 neighborhood, single family homes? Do we go from, he said, 0 to hero? I mean, is that the right approach? Is it, is it really the way we want to scale things? And it may well be, there may be a decision. Council could look at this and say, we're really sorry, but this is where the cluster of residential will be to support the commercial in that area. I don't know if that's the view that would be taken or not, but I don't think we've answered that question. Is this the OCP guidance that makes sense for Colwood? It does right now, according to what's on paper, but again, it comes back to the spirit of the OCP versus the letter of the OCP. So I really think council needs to take a long look at that area and either own it or decide that it's, needs a change. And we can't keep the developer waiting forever. They've invested time and money according to the plans that are there to do what they do, which is very fair. So again, they're not the bad guy. And we can't keep the neighborhood, in limbo, sitting there, turning up to meeting after meeting, wondering what if, did I, is my life going to change here? Will I have a place to park? I mean, I get all of these things. So for me, I guess what I've turned into a long story here is that somehow I would like to see this arrive at council in a place where council can first make an overarching determination. Is this what we want to have happen in this center's area? Is this new zoning template really what we want to see? And again, I don't know the answer, but that's where I'd like us to get. There's a variety of ways we can get there. We can simply move the staff recommendation. For the folks in the gallery, yeah, that looks on paper that it's going to go to council and just be rubber stamped. But I can tell you what happens here is that if the committee recommends it, it will go to council. It will be put on the consent agenda, which is usually meant to be sort of a fait accompli. You look at the consent agenda, there's 3 or 4 items. It was approved by a committee, you rubber stamp it. So if this moves forward to there, I'll give you my commitment that I will take it off the consent agenda. Any one councillor can ask that an item be taken off so that it's thoroughly discussed. Because I think there are questions about the OCP that I think council has a responsibility to answer. As far as the motion tonight, I'm neither here nor there on it, Mr. Perry, no offense. I'm not all that concerned about the parking elements. For me, it's the overarching piece. So I just wanted to kind of get my 2 cents in there. I will now look to any other discussion on the motion if there's.
Was a motion to amend the recommendation, not actually vote on it, just to be sure?
Well, we would have to vote on the amendment, but
right, okay.
Yeah. Okay, I can't see Councillor Jansen, so I don't know if he has his hand up or if he's good to move forward. We have no speakers here, so. Okay, I will call the vote then on the amendment to the motion. Sorry, Councillor Jansen, did you want to speak to the motion before voting?
Sorry, I was just waiting to actually see it. I don't know if it's being put up or anything or amended or. Thank you.
I don't want to get rid of the ability for public
Okay, so the recommendation we have before us is what we see there with the well, and we would remove the opportunity for comment piece right now because that's related directly to the DVP. Yeah, so that would come off as well. So it would be what you see in black text there. Councillor Jansen, any thoughts? I don't know if you've seen it, I assume.
Quickly, I've viewed it. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure you've seen it. Okay, so unless there's any further commentary, I would call the question. All those opposed? I see. Opposed to the amendment. Okay, so that's fails 4-1 on the amendment. That brings us back to the beginning. Now, Katrina, you indicated you wanted to make a motion. Is that correct? Okay, I will give you the floor.
I would like to make a motion for us to recommend that council go with option 3. That the application for rezoning application for 396 Tamarack Road be denied.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? We have 1 vote in favor, so that fails. I would like to try my hand now, I suppose. We'll see if we can, third time's a charm, maybe, maybe not. I would like to move the staff recommendation with the caveat, and I'll go back to where I wrote it down. So the staff recommendation, the second piece, sorry, I'm just going to try to make sure I get it here. So where it says be considered, oh, sorry, go back to the first part. Where it says be considered for first, second, and third reading, I would indicate that that it be considered for first, second, and third reading pending a review by council of the appropriateness of the OCP designation for the area, brackets centers. Oh, sorry, I will slow down. So following where it says first, second, and third reading, I would say pending a review by council of the appropriateness of the OCP centers designation for the area in question. And to the gentleman in the back who was asking earlier, sort of layperson's terms, just give you insight into my thinking, is that in fairness, this would move it forward, my view, to council to have the option, should the majority of council decide, no, in fact, this is what we want to do, to carry on with business. So it leaves the opportunity open without, you know, putting a full stop on a project and the financial ramifications and things comes with that. But it also puts the onus squarely on council to review this and say, is this what is intended for this part of Colwood? Do we line up with the 2018 OCP? Was it really intended to turn this area into a high density area? So in order to actually move forward on first, second, and third reading, there would first have to essentially be a vote on, does this stay the way it is? So that's the intent of my motion anyway, to put the onus on council to make that decision. So again, I open up the floor to any discussion. I see Councillor Jansen has a hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we get some direction on what that may look like from staff, please? Because in my experience, anytime we talk about sort of an adjustment or a review of the OCP, we're going to get bogged down in process that could be years in the making. And if that's the case, I can't support that amendment, but I would love to gain an understanding. In my mind, is that not what we're doing when we're considering the development and the rezoning application? But I'd just love to hear what Mr. Johnson or Mr. Rosenberg have to say.
The rezoning application is one of the few discretionary powers of council. So council can turn their mind to the OCP, the appropriateness of land use designations. That is something that council would do when they're looking at this rezoning application. The OCP provides the framework of which these folks have made the application for. But quite frankly, when staff have reviewed this as well, when I reviewed the report, that was one of my concerns as well when I looked at that. So council would turn their mind to that. In terms of an OCP review, I don't think that that's what's being asked for. I think what's being said is this density correct in this neighborhood? And the rezoning application allows council to look at that and turn their mind to that.
Thank you. So you don't envision some kind of sidebar process to go along with this? It can all be done in one package?
Yes, that's the way that I believe that we would look at that and bring that forward to council.
So with that direction, I can find myself to support the chair's motion. The only thing I would say is that, I mean, the neighborhood is deserving of some answers. And so dragging this process out does nothing for the property owner or anyone that lives in the area. I think we need to get to a decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. And just in response to that, I agree. And I think the intent of my motion wasn't to instigate a separate OCP review that will drag on for months. Frankly, things take way too long here. I'm aware of that, believe me. And that's not a criticism of staff. That's just a reality of procedures and how these things work and scheduling and all the rest. My intent would be just to have this happen on the same timeline so that the folks in the gallery know that they show up in October. The developer can continue working forward based on the same timeline. There is no delay. It just, rather than push it forward as a recommendation that we just approve it, it pushes it forward to say, on the surface, with all of the rules that are in place today, we can't deny it, it makes sense, but council should take a look at the appropriateness of where this is happening. Do we want it to be high density there or not? And that's the question before us. So that's my intent there anyway, to keep things moving along, but get some answers. Mr. Perry.
Is your recommendation in the interest of timeline? Because when considering option 2, where we instead could recommend a deferral until the provisioning of additional information, that additional information could be the review of the Colwood corners and the overlay of the triangle area plan to determine an appropriate density or desirable density for that neighborhood. I think the issue that I'm standing on top of the bicycle or the parking is the hearing most frequently that you're going from large lots, single family home to 6 stories next door, right next to 2. And so like, is there a way to satisfy the OCP without putting literally as much as possible on that piece of land? And I think that option 2 gives us a better opportunity to ask for the provisioning of additional information over a, you know, an additional sort of like contingent postfix to the sentence in the current motion. So I guess I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it speaks to what Councillor Jansen mentioned and to what Mr. Johnson alluded to, that I believe we can accomplish that maintaining the existing timeline. I think a deferral to, you know, again, we'd have to clarify what we're deferring for. Is it to gauge the appropriateness of the OCP? And you know, I think we're talking similar things. That then sort of ends with an open timeline, which from my experience and Councillor Jansen sort of cynically referred to it dragging on for months and months, but that becomes the reality. It would become a separately scheduled item, and you know, the same folks would be back in a year's time. You know, then the developer might give up, someone else buys the property, and now they want 8 stories. So you know, it just creates a lot of uncertainty, and I think sometimes trying to maintain a timeline but maybe deliver the same, you know, the same, I'm not going to say the same result, but the same discussion. And ultimately the discussion for me would be around all of those things you mentioned. Does this fit in the triangle lines? You know, should it be part of that plan? Does it make sense to put a 6-story structure adjacent to single family homes in an area that, you know, and where it sticks out? All of those questions can be asked and answered, I think, under the amendment that I've proposed. I think our logic is the same. It's just one would take significantly longer than the other. That's my view anyway. Go to Kathleen here.
I just want to kind of dovetail on what you're saying. I think going for deferral just invites nothing to happen. And so my question, I suppose, especially from to the CAO, is does the proposed amending language slow things down. What I'm interested is in seeing this being dealt with. So how do we prompt council to deal with it promptly? How does this happen as quickly as possible? I do want to hear what council decides, but how do we make council do it quickly for
This would,
everybody's sake?
this would not change the timing that was in the report. This would just turn council's attention to this matter because the committee has referred it to them. So it would still move forward in October as per the original timeline that was presented in the staff report.
Thank you so much. That's helpful.
Any additional comments, questions? No, I would just add, I completely understand where you're coming at from the deferral point of view. I think it, you know, it accomplishes many of the same things, but I just am loath to sort of park it in the long-term agenda. And, you know, in many ways, it paralyzes the developer and it gives false hope to the folks that are here that, you know, they'll have to monitor it instead of for another, you know, few months. They'll be looking at this for 6 months to a year to, you know, who knows when to get an answer. And I think ideally we have answers, and this council has, you know, a little over a year left, and during that time we should make decisions on things like this and we should own them. That's what we were elected to do. So I'm comfortable with that. It doesn't make it any easier when it gets to the next stage, but it had to get to the next stage one way or the other. And to me, this leaves everything on the table for council to decide what they want to do, but really turns their attention to, is this the right place? Is this the right time? Is this the right density? So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to move on to another motion if it fails, but I'll call the question. All those in favor? So the motion passes, and that brings us to the end of that. Takes us to item 6, adjournment. If I could have a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Kathleen. All those opposed? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Jansen would like to stay. Thank you for joining us remotely, Councillor. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you for everyone who took the time to come out tonight on both